There's a seventh primitive type that's been added to JavaScript. What are the existing 6 primitive types in JavaScript? We got number, string, object, boolean, null, and undefined. Now we have a seventh one, which is a symbol. Now, symbols are pretty simple, but they take a little bit to wrap your head around because, I don't know, I don't think that a lot of people were actually asking for these things in the language, but I can see where it would be useful. Symbols are unique identifiers. They pretty much help us avoid having naming collision. So anytime that you want to you create a property in a unique way, that's when you should reach for a symbol. So let's take a look at a symbol right here. I say const west equals symbol, and then you pass it. This is not a value. This is what is called a descriptor, because the symbol itself is just a unique identifier. So if you were to visualize what a symbol would be, maybe you could like visualize it as something like this, like absolute unique symbol. So I can make sure that it never overrides any other piece of code in there. And then this right here, that's just a descriptor, because otherwise I would have no idea what that actual thing is. So I've described it as Wes here. Now, if you go into our console and type in Wes, the variable, you'll see that it is then a actual symbol. What's cool about this is if I create a second symbol like person, and I create a symbol here with Wes again, are those two things going to be the same because I described them as the same thing? Let's see. Wes, person, Wes equals person. No. What about like double equals? No, not allowed either. So that's one thing that you need to know about symbols, is they are absolutely unique, and you'll never have a naming collision with them. So that could be useful if you were creating an object of your class. So you say const class equals, don't make a class, that's a reserved word. So const classroom equals, and you wanted to name everybody off. So maybe you have like Mark, and you say Mark is, his grade is a 50, and his gender is a male. And then you have like another Olivia, grade is a 80, gender is female. But then you have another Olivia, because these days every person born is named Olivia. So you've got a naming collision there, right? And you could like put some sort of like guarantee unique identifier and hope that they never overlap. But that could run into issues especially when you have a lot of data. Think about if you're doing some 3D work or working with Canvas, where you have millions and millions of pieces of data that you're working with at a single time. So rather than using the person's name or some sort of unique identifier, we can use a symbol to name them. So let's say we have here, we'll say symbol of Mark is this one. And then we'll do the same for both of the Olivias. Square bracket, symbol, Olivia. And even though these are the exact same things, now they're not going to be overwritten. If we refresh, now if you look at Classroom, you'll see that we've got symbol, 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 and you'll be able to see them. Another thing we need to know about symbols is that they are not enumerable, which means that we cannot loop over them. Watch, if I were to use for person in classroom. Remember, I'm not using person of, because you cannot use of within object. In order to console log the person, I get nothing. Why? Because symbols aren't enumerable. And for that reason, sometimes people use them to store private data, because you're never going to be looping over any of your symbols. So maybe if you had information about someone that you didn't want to be looping over, you could store that data in an actual symbol. If you do want to get access to all of your symbols, because obviously there's some information that you would want to get here, you can use the object method get own property symbols. So say object dot get own property symbols, and then you pass it the object you want to grab all of the symbols off of. So pass it classroom here, and I'll just say const sims equals, and then we'll console log the sims. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so what that gives us is an array of just the symbols themselves. Remember that the symbols aren't the actual object here. The symbols are just the property keys that are inside of Classroom. So how do I actually get like the data? There's no data in here at all. And you look, these two things are exactly the same. But if I were to then take all of my symbols, let's say const data equals, I can map over each of those symbols and take each symbol and return classroom square bracket sim. Why? Because a symbol is the equivalent of like something like that. And it's going to be able to pull back Mark, Olivia, and Olivia, even though these two things are exactly the same. So by using that symbol as the property key, I'm now going to be able to access my data. So let's see, console log the data here. And there, that's how you actually get it. So a little bit of a workaround, but if you do need to ever store some private data, or you want to make sure that your keys in your object are absolutely unique, that's when you should reach for a symbol.